The word is compromise, C-O-M-P-R-O-M-I-S-E. The word compromise has a number of different meanings, but the one that is mostly used is a negative one, is to lessen somehow the impact of whatever principle you might have. You compromise your ideas, you compromise your principles, you compromise what you're doing, and in so doing, you are somehow selling off or reducing whatever potential you might have, whatever potential your idea might have in terms of doing good. Now, that is indeed a negative way of thinking about the word compromise, and that is the French word compromise. That's what the origin is. But there was another word, and that's a Latin word from which compromise originally initiated, and that simply meant a mutual promise. A promise that two people or two people holding two different ideas will make to each other to do things in a particular way. If we think about the idea of a mutual promise, the word compromise becomes much more positive. It leans more towards showing and pointing the way towards collaboration. Two people who want to collaborate need to compromise. Now, does that have any impact in practical terms in our everyday life? I mean, after all, you can use the word compromise in whichever way you fancy. I suspect actually that that word has a lot to do with the negative connotation a lot of people think the arts, for instance, studying the arts in particular, have. I'll give you an example. In science, a lot is done, a lot is talked about, whether you believe that or not, about the fact that, 2 and 2 equals 4. There is a certain cleanness about that. There's something precise. It is not really all that much open to debate, let alone compromise. In the arts, on the other hand, take films, which is my field. You show the same film to two different people, they may have two very different ideas, so very different opinion about that. Does it work? Is it good? Is it bad? And so on. There isn't that cleanliness. There isn't that clean-cut thing. There isn't a 2 plus 2. And so the notion and idea of compromising comes into play. And a lot of people may think that that simply means vague. It means somehow not precise. And if you extend it even further, film and television is an art form that has thousands of people very often working on the same piece of work. And so the nature of working with that kind of number of people on a creative enterprise presents compromise on a biblical level, if you want. You need to compromise on your creativity, you need to compromise on the logistics, you need to compromise on just about anything. But in a sense, that is the genius of this particular industry and the genius of the word compromise. It is actually a very positive thing to think about compromise in a constructive fashion, to imagine that your position is just a starting point and that you have to deal with that of a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds who will come to the same project with different ideas. If there was a word to define the film and television industry, I would think that compromise is precisely the one that defines it. An example that many people use, studios interfering with the freedom of directors or filmmakers and what they do. On the face of it, it would look indeed like a very negative thing. How dare you come and tell a filmmaker how to do his job? How dare you interfere with his creative vision? But first of all, there is a lot of creative interference that goes on without a studio being involved, because of course there are hundreds of filmmakers involved in any one project, and even the most egotistical of directors will have to listen to what other people, other collaborators are telling him. But most importantly, studio so-called interference sometimes has led to very positive compromise in the sense of pointing out some things that perhaps the director in the full flow of creative production has not thought. How is this going to work with an audience? Is the film too long? Is the film too short? Is it clear? Does it make any sense? Does it say what it's meant to say? Does it say what the director says he wants to say? There are all sorts of different questions that in the best case scenario, a director will have a bouncing board, if you want. Somebody from the studio capable of telling him, actually, you know what, maybe you're not so right on this one. Maybe asking him or her to compromise a little. And again, The best directors always know that creative compromise can be tough, can be painful, but at the same time can also be very constructive. A creative compromise is the most difficult kind because, unlike science, there is no certainty. But hey, I think sometimes we can work with a little bit less certainty.